I swear I'm back. Hi. I got back and there were only 3 new messages. Nobody has said hi to me. I guess I'm not late at all. Leaf! Hi, Leaf. Leaf gets the shout out of the video. Hello. The shout out of the podcast. Does anyone? I don't really watch her anymore. But did anyone ever watch, does anyone watch Erin Guilfoyle / her now husband, PJ Petrarca? I think they're very cute. I did say something about them in a video that some people didn't like, but thank you guys for the compliments. But I just reminded myself of him because when she does Vlogmas, at the end of each one, she has TJ come in and he says, the shout out of the video goes to, and I've never heard that. I've never heard shout out of the video. It sounds a little like elementary, but he'll just say a name and then a city. It won't be anyone in particular, but he'll be like, shout out of the video goes to Eleanor in Reno, Nevada. Eleanor, you go girl. And so that's like his thing. And I always thought that was cute. I haven't watched them in a long time. Hi. I'm contemplating whether or not I really want to hold my laptop this video. Podcast. I didn't say that. I love that you guys are enjoying my dress. Thank you. I will say, if there are any audience members, okay, so for the audio listeners, I'm going to try to focus a little less on talking about the fashion. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Depends on, really, is anybody really just listening to the audio and complaining that I'm talking too much about clothes? I'm wearing this, I don't want to call it a baby doll dress, but it kind of is. It has a Peter Pan collar, which can we bring back the Peter Pan collar? Can we bring back that, hear me out. A lot of y'all were doing the scene thing in the early 2010s, I guess it was, and more power to you. It was a cool look. It wasn't exactly mine. I was more like this. I was more like, can we bring back the Zooey Deschanel mod cloth era? I think we all could appreciate the long line cardigans with the short skirts and the tights, the opaque tights in winter with the little booty, or the sneakers. I don't know if I would say that era of fashion is timeless, but I could still do it for another 10 years or so. Cutie dork vibes, Sammy. Yes, thank you. That's a good way to put it, because that was my vibe, and I want to bring it back. Although I also don't have a one singular vibe. Christian girl fall vibes. Does that come complete with the beanie, and then in the fall leaves all around you, holding onto the beanie and looking up? Because I could do that. It is timeless, says Jewel Burley. Yeah, I love it. Cardigans, booties, tights. Shiloh Walker and the McBrooms. I don't know much about them. I watched a couple of videos. I don't care about these family vloggers. I'm sorry. But no live, laugh, love quotes. We're beyond that. We are refined. But yeah, for anybody who's wondering what I am wearing, it's like I said, kind of a baby doll dress. I say baby doll just in that it's got kind of an empire waist, and is in a sky blue and a blush pink. It's got some sheer overlays, a Peter Pan collar, and some kind of Asian inspired embroidery. So I will say, if there is anybody in my audience that just has a ridiculously tiny rib cage, this is the dress for you to find on Depop, because this thing is not closed in the back, not in the slightest. Or maybe in the slightest, just in that I put a safety pin at the very top. But otherwise, it's not even like a big boob girl problem type of thing, because it won't zip up past the band right here. right here, it's done. And it's still like tight in here. So if you've got like the teeniest, tiniest rib cage, or if you have like a child, who says that a child can't wear this dress? I mean, it's built for one, it seems like. Thank you to you guys who were being sweet to me. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I was nervous. I was nervous to do this. There's just so much bullshit going on the internet right now. And I don't know if I really want to address it or if I save that for Patreon. I want to talk to you guys. I have an announcement to make. And there's part of me that wants to say, like, hey, let's save the announcements till the end. But I'm also really bad at keeping secrets. I am noticing that I'm liking my hair these days, so that's good. As a side note, my the way my hair changes colors in the sun, because I usually dye it pretty dark. Again, like Zooey Deschanel vibes, like almost black. I do like a brown black dye. And then over the course of the summer, it gets like these like what looks like intentional highlights, but I'm kind of enjoying it. Kind of want to keep it. And Jane has a barrel chest under some G's. Nothing cute fits you, especially in men's shirts. Well, I'll tell you what. As a wise prophet, Leif Hegels once said, has it been over 2 minutes? Yes. You got to suffer for juicy milkers like this. I so hope my family didn't hear that. Also, my nails accidentally matched my dress. So, hello. I was nervous. I was nervous to get on here. So it just seems like the internet's been such a negative place. And it scares me. It scares me a lot these days. There's just a whole thing. Can we have a real moment? So early on. Can I just change the mood completely? Just out of nowhere. No permission whatsoever. I love you guys so much. There are 100 of you in the room. I can say with a pretty high degree of confidence that just about almost every one of you in this room I love. I'm sure that there are a couple of people that are hate watching me, and there are a couple of people that are like half hate watching me and just watching to see what's going on. And you're fine. Even the hate watchers, as long as you're not saying shit and like making things problematic in the chat, I don't care. But and I take a lot of advice and criticism, and I read your DMs, as many as I can, and all of that. And I just want you guys to know that if I do decide to talk about something, or I don't decide to talk about something, and whatever I do is counter to whatever your advice is or was, or your opinion is or was, it's not that I don't care about what you have to say. One of the problems is I can almost promise you that for every one person that says, hey, I don't think this is a good look to do the thing, there is somebody else that is saying, hey, it's not a good look not to do this thing. So no matter what advice I'm getting from you guys, I'm getting the opposite advice from somebody else who is just as like well-meaning and loving and caring. So just expect some changes, expect a little more realness from me, expect what you might consider not mistakes, because I will intend to do them, but just poor choices. Maybe we'll call it that. Maybe what some would consider poor choices, but with authenticity. Hopefully we can agree that like we'd rather have our YouTubers imperfect, but real, right? Than so cautious and careful and trying to make every right move to the point where she's afraid to even just say the thing that's on her mind. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to, and I don't know if that has something to do with why I was nervous about. Are we being water ganked? Meeks is in the room. Meeks, I hope you're feeling better. Libby's channel says, I'll never stop admiring your integrity and authenticity. Thank you. Only so authentic. The back of this dress is open. So just remember, we've all got imperfections that we're hiding. You guys are being so sweet. Sammy, thank you for that comment. Tenuvial the Fair. I love that name. Thank you. You guys are so sweet. I love the people in this room. I do. So what are we talking about today? I do have an announcement coming. And maybe I won't wait till the very end, but we'll talk about our thing, and then I'll announce a thing that I'm kind of excited about. But we'll talk. We'll get a little real towards the end. Leaf, I think you're pretty cool too. Grace says, just to do my best. Grace, I can do that for you. My best as a combination of my best with my realist, because I don't want to be too careful. That's the thing, is that, and with good reason, the past couple of weeks I've had to try to be like, make sure that I'm being careful, but I need to find I need to come back to some sort of normalcy, but not back to where things used to be, say, a month or two ago. I want to continue to evolve into something. It's weird because in some ways I want to go back to, fuck it, we'll do the announcement now. In some ways I feel like, how do I say this without sounding just unappreciative of my viewers, my listeners, because I the people who come to these things, I want to keep you forever. But one of the things, and this might be like an opening line for an upcoming podcast, just warning you, but one of the things that I heard somebody say in a video, which is a concept we hear about a lot about YouTubers. One thing that this person brought up was how people say, if you're a YouTuber, does that mean you have to be a narcissist because you think that your thoughts and opinions are so important that other people have to hear them? And I thought, well, that's interesting, because of course, like, nobody wants to sit back and go, I'm a narcissist. And I've had my moments where I'm like, am I a narcissist? But then I like hear about what narcissists are like, and I'm like, no, but I can think of somebody in my family who is like, only one. Or like a friend who is, or something like that. We all know a couple, I think. But the notion that we think that our thoughts and our opinions are so important that people should listen to them. First of all, don't let that attitude stop you from starting a YouTube channel if that's what you want to do. Even if you think that your opinions are noteworthy, something worthy of being heard, I don't think that makes you a narcissist. But where I realize that this sentiment does not apply to me is that if you've been around my channel a while, you may have heard of kind of like how I started my channel. And it was the opposite reason. It was the exact opposite of that reason that I started this YouTube channel. It was because I had a lot of thoughts and opinions, particularly about what was going on around the YouTubers that I was watching. And I think it was kind of like shortly after commentary and drama channels really started to take off. I want to say that happened around like 2017-ish, 2017, 2018. I had a lot of opinions about these YouTubers, but I wasn't going to burden anyone with those conversations. I didn't think that anybody owed it to me to listen to me talk about these things. So my starting a YouTube channel was in service of me being able to express my thoughts and opinions without burdening anyone with having to listen to them. But holy shit, does that change over time when you gain a following? So, which is such a weird thing. It's so interesting because I'm not going to, and I've definitely said things like this before, like, it's my channel, I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. In a sense, I do need to like stick to that. But I have to recognize now that there is a market out there. There's a market of people who are coming to my channel to consume the content that I'm putting out. And so there are people that I have to be considerate of now. But I have to find that balance, right? That unfettered Alicia and her mind and her opinions and things she really needs to get off her chest while considering, what people want to hear. And so that's part of the reason that I say to those of you who are sending me messages about like, I think you should do this, I think you shouldn't do that. I appreciate it because I know that so many of you, even the ones who do it with like a snippy attitude, I'll appreciate a lot of you guys too. And I'll tell you, thank you. Because I know that you care. But at the same time, one example is somebody I recently spoke to. I don't know if this person watches BAPs. It was a decent conversation. This person was a little harsh with me, saying like, you need to change your content this way and that way and the other. And I appreciated that concern for my content because it's those suggestions are made towards me, towards like helloleesh as a business. Does that make sense? Like, hey, I think this business should be run this way for the success of the business, right? And kind of with the concern of the success of your business being tied to your happiness overall. So these people care about me being happy. I assume. But at the end of the day, the more I create for this channel in a way that is aimed not solely, because we always have to care somewhat about how it's performing, but when I make that the focus, how it's performing, if I make that the focus of my content, it is not true to why I started my channel. And some people start channels because they want to create a successful YouTube channel. That's why I said, if you want to do it, do it. And in the commentary and drama space, especially I would say for drama channels, and the reason I don't consider myself a drama channel is because like I've said before, I'm not a reporting channel. I'm not going to come out here and list out the facts and the dates and when they happened right as they're happening. I don't have the interest in doing that. That's not why I started my channel. And I don't have the time to, and even the wherewithal to even stick with what's going on. To like report to you guys as soon as something's happening. So you guys got a lot of channels that'll do that for you. This is just a place for me to kind of air out my own thoughts. So that's kind of why, like, in a way, I want to continue evolving to make sure that I'm starting to be truer to my craft, which is funny because my craft is really just like just the natural expressions that come out of my dang face. But in a sense, kind of going back to those first few videos, because those first few videos were not there to serve anyone but myself. And then if anybody cared to hear, cool, that was awesome. And that's why I would say, hey, to you, the one person who's watching, because I assumed nobody would watch. So if anybody happened to watch it, then I'd be saying, hey to you. But if nobody watched, then nobody knew that I was saying hey to nobody. That was kind of the whole idea behind saying to you, the one person who's watching who's not me. So in a sense, I'm sorry, I need to make sure I pick up my phone, turn it on, do not disturb, but also make myself available in case my producer needs me. So I think part of what's making me nervous, I said I was nervous to start this. I think part of what's making me nervous is learning how and where I'm going to shift my tone a little bit. I think I've told you guys a couple of times that I'm going to give you a little more realness and also just the way I think about life and things is changing. So, if you're going to come to me in a year and say like, you said this thing here, but you said this thing 2 years ago, it'd be like, yeah, I change. My mind changes. And that's what I did with my last video. It was kind of the point of the beginning of my video about Shane and Jeffree. At the very beginning, I showed you guys me saying the very opposite of what the rest of my video was going to say. I was like, I like Shane. Don't really like Jeffree, but I really like them together. I was like, I just think Jeffree. I've never heard that one before. I think Jeffree is good for Shane. Shane is good for Jeffree. They're great together. And then the whole video was over an hour long and just me talking about how awful they are together. So if you haven't watched that, don't go looking for it right now because it's not up anymore. I got a copyright claim. Thank you. from one of the companies that I guess Shane and Andrew grabbed their music from for one of their videos. So I'm, instead of abiding by their demands, I'm just cutting that portion of the video and re-uploading it. So that will be up right after this. It's in processing right now. So what does that mean for my announcement? Well, I'm still going to try hard to give you guys more realness in these BAPs. I plan to continue these on Tuesdays. But what I would like to do as well, I'm not so sure that in the immediate future, I'm going to have time to be making just your standard main channel videos. We'll see. We'll see if that time kind of comes back to me, or if I can do them maybe less frequently. But you see, when I make them, they're like almost like feature length films. So it's just not sustainable with a full-time job. I think at this point, I think I want to keep my full-time job for a while. But what I do enjoy is kind of sitting here and talking to you guys for a while and having a little bit more participation with the audience, not having to script or plan. Everything's on a schedule, so I don't have to like push myself to get up and actually do the damn thing. It's like, nope, Tuesday at 6:00 is coming, or maybe, whatever time that we're about to talk about is coming, and I just have to do it. And so I like that. And then when it's done, it's done. So, and I didn't expect for BAP to be as successful as it is. And that's not to say like every single episode is just like, wow, so many views. But it's something that people say they look forward to in the week. So I don't even know I don't deserve that. Like, I don't know why you guys look forward to these talks with me, other than the fact that I've seen the way you interact in the comments with each other. And that makes sense to me because there is like this really cool sense of community. So if you guys do like this, or perhaps Tuesdays at 6 p.m. are just not the best time for you, or perhaps you want to hear me talk about more of the real stuff, I have a new plan. And it's starting this week. So clear your calendars for Thursday evening, because I now have a Patreon exclusive podcast weekly. That's what we're going to do, at least for now, and see how it goes. And you don't have to pay the $5 for the regular access. It's a $2 tier. So if you care at all for these podcasts, or want something that goes a little more real, a little deeper, a little more controversial, perhaps a little more intimate, perhaps, not perhaps, definitely those things, because as much as I'm telling you guys, like, please forgive me, I'm going to be real, I'm going to say the things that are actually on my mind. Like, if I put it behind even just a $2 paywall, I'm going to feel a lot more at liberty to say whatever the fuck I want to say. That's really what it is. So kind of some examples of things that I may want to talk about. What I do want to talk about this week is the concept of, something we hear a lot about. There are certain terms of the season. It was narcissism before, it was sociopathic before that. And right now what I hear a lot of is moral high ground. And people telling me things like, you no longer have the moral high ground, or you think you have the moral high ground, or moral high ground, moral high ground. So I do want to talk about the concept of a moral high ground and whether or not I have it or ever did, to be honest. There's another situation going on. I don't know if I want to talk about it, if I'm going to talk about it. But there is a situation, and I'll just keep this part really brief, where a creator made a video about me and an audience member that I've talked to you guys about, that has partaken in these conversations before. She's a really cool kid. I'm sad at what she's going through right now with this situation, but somebody did make a video about, I guess, like the relationship between me and this kid in my audience, and it became a whole family affair. It became a mess. And, some people think, don't talk about that you shouldn't talk about that. It's not good. It's the person who made it as a really small channel, And then other people are like, your viewers are privy to what's going on and they're getting attacked for standing by you. You need to talk about this. And some people are just like, what the hell's going on? So things like that I may talk about either this week or in an upcoming week or things like that. I've placed a lot of rules around my channel and around like my Patreon, my Discord. Like, I'm not going to talk about people. Like, I'm not going to, if it's in any way punching down, I'm not even going to reference them unnamed. And I think I'm just not going to do that anymore. I think if there are people that are impacting my life, particularly in a negative way and just kind of getting away with it, then I want a place where I can talk about that stuff and really just like vent it all out or tell you guys stories from my life that you may be curious about, because sometimes when I open up, people are like, holy shit, didn't realize that you had all that going on. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? On Thursdays, probably at like 7 p.m., just because 6 p.m. is a real scramble on Tuesdays, and I don't know that I can do it two times a week. But that would mean patrons, that would eliminate the Patreon lives, but you'll get a podcast every week. So hopefully that kind of makes up for that. And if it's the case that it's just not a good time for a lot of people, we can play with perhaps switching it up sometimes, maybe doing it on a Sunday afternoon for Euro Squad or whatever. But if that's keep the same energy. That keep the same energy is another term that people are using a lot this year, but it's really funny because people sure don't like it when you return the energy that they're giving you. Jane says you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, if that helps. In a sense, it does. Thank you. But if you guys want to know more, you can probably sign up. It's $2 a month. So I wanted it to be something where it was super accessible to people, to where, if you enjoy these at all, that it would be hopefully just a drop in the bucket, but at least some sort of paywall so that it's inviting a certain type of audience in. With the paywall too, I think there's just kind of a culture of being able to speak more freely and treat it a little more as a private conversation. And anybody who wants to record and disseminate that shit, like, there's got to be some way to enact some sort of laws against that, because we know people like to do that, and they should pay money for all the people who hear. My goodness. Oh my goodness. It's time for me to do this. I've actually instructed my mods to take a little go a little bit more lax on there, and not have to worry so much about timing people out. But there's somebody that I would love to time out that I'm sick of. Absolutely sick of. We'll talk about it on my Patreon. There we go. That person's gone. Thursday's work for Jazzy. Yay. helloleesh after dark. It's funny because I was like trying to think of a name, Raspberry Italia, and I was just like, lights out. And I was like, no, wait, that sounds so much like H3 after dark. So I was like, my mind was in the same place as yours. But what I'm calling it, I've decided, is basically a BAP, because I didn't want it to be something too different from BAP. I was just going to call it like BAP Patreon or something. But it's going to be called basically a BAP. So BAP. Oops, so sorry, I hit the mic or the pop filter. You love my water bottle. Thank you. I purchased a bunch of water bottles so that we could switch it up for these things. Since I'm showing off my water bottles, I have to have good ones, right? Oh, Kendall Ray does a Lights Out podcast. There you go. All the podcast names are taken, just for the record. When we were setting up all of the BAP stuff, we realized that there are a few podcasts called basically a podcast. Spicy Nugget Cast. I just don't want to have all these different podcasts with all these different names. This will be, I would say, BAP light, but it's not going to be light. It's going to be kind of heavy. BAP heavy. Babap is exactly right. Late night BAP. Late night because it's an hour later in the evening. Yes, basically a podcast. Brittany, if you get it, then we have the same brain. Bap bap. Let me check my master doc here because I know, I thought I was already on my master doc. I know I saw that there was a super chat that came in. I wanted to say hello and thank you. And if I didn't make it clear, yes, you can buy this dress on Depop. There's no way I'll be able to leave the house in it because my rib cage is not small enough for it. Sweet Sienna, welcome back. Sienna says 2 weeks in a row. God, I feel so lucky just tuning in. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Shane's return. Wishing everyone in the stream all the well-being, love, and joy you need today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sienna. We needed that. I think a lot of people here need that for sure. I know a couple of people that have fallen on hard times recently and could use the well wishes, right? BAP Heavy reminds me of my college friend's dad who called regular Budweiser Bud Fat. BAP Fat. I love it. So yeah, that's what a wholesome super chat now that I silenced someone and I'm not sorry for it. Sign up for my Patreon if you want to hear what I really think about you. Also, like, why is somebody coming into a live stream to talk about what was linked in my Patreon? Like, you paying for my Patreon? You paying for my Discord access? Who's sharing this information with you? And also, who cares what's being linked in my Discord? None of your damn business. Unless you're in my Patreon, in which case you can talk to us about it, but don't bring it to a live platform like this. Thank you. Thank you. Also, if you can talk about what you want to on your channel, I can sure as hell talk about what I want to on my channel as long as I'm not telling lies like you did. I'm not. Let's talk about it on Patreon. I just keep saying, I keep like dropping like these little like rants and be, let's talk about it on Patreon. Let's talk about it on Patreon because honestly, that's what we do there. We talk about this more personal stuff. We get real. We do that. I don't know what you do on your Patreons, but that's what we do. Like, why would you join some of these Patreon if it's not going to be like a little more real or a little more community or a place where you could feel a little bit safe saying things? Like, what's the point? Tell me what's the point of joining like at least like a Discord if it's not for having a place where you could just like talk about your real feelings. Like get it through your head if you haven't, not you, none of you guys, because you guys are all good. But like just some people just don't get it that like this is my private space to talk to my people. And if you want to pay to lurk, do so. But you don't reserve the right to complain about what we talk about. Sorry, I got a little spicy there. I'm going to try to reserve that for the for basically a BAP, but it's going to happen here. And to honestly, like, dead serious, just to return to the note from before, to anybody that is like feeling a little bit disenchanted because they don't necessarily like this side of me or they're afraid of what's going to happen if I continue to like say things that might rub people wrong. Like, I'm really sorry if that changes your experience with my content, but it's something I've got to do. And if that means that you've got to watch my content less, then I'm sad, but at the same time, it's like might be something that needs to happen. Because I know some people have like kind of felt like they're hanging on, like they've been watching for a while, and so they want to like, continue watching. But then, these different sides of me that are a little more real and coming out, they don't know that they agree with that, and so they don't know what to do, and so they complain to me. And it's like, well, I think maybe the more natural, like, by all means, I accept criticism. In fact, some of these people, smaller channels that I've mentioned, like, I have welcomed you to make critical videos of me. Just make sure that your information is factual and maybe respect people to some degree, the tiniest bit, But I've even said that these people were better than me maybe in like some moralistic way. I definitely take that back about one of the people that I was referencing last time. But if this new me, this actual me just kind of rubs you wrong, that's okay. If you go and there's so much content on YouTube and there's somebody else who's better suited to you. It's such a weird feeling to have so many people have so many opinions on me. I was just talking to Amber and Ashley about this because growing up, especially being military, but also being just kind of like just kind of awkward, dorky looking, and just kind of one of the smart kids, whatever, like somebody who was not allowed to do anything, but wasn't invited to do anything anyway. I just was kind of like, I hate this trope because I've never said this about myself, but you hear it in the movies and it's definitely true. I was not seen. Let me share this with you guys because it's BAP. We don't necessarily stay on topic the whole time. Let me give you a little story. So I moved around all of my childhood, like every 2-ish years on average. So I was born in Denver, moved to Southern California, moved back to Denver for a little bit, moved back to Southern California, moved to Oklahoma, Virginia, Hawaii, Northern California, to Georgia. I went to school at MIT for a year, back down to Georgia to finish out my degree, and then moved up to the DC area. So when we moved to Georgia, it was 10th grade. And then I stayed there until I graduated. So 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. And like I said, I was an honors geek. When you're an honors geek, at least at a school the size of my school, you have all the same classes with all the same people for the most part all day. It'll be like, or at least like, say there are 7 periods in a day. In a day, 4 or 5 of those classes, you're with the same people the whole time. And then that continues year after year after year. So yes, there are a lot of people on Facebook who like didn't care to know me in high school, want to be my friend now. But I remember being in DC. This must have been right around like 2012 or so. 2012, 2014, somewhere around there. It was right around this time of year, and I was in a store that was like one of those Halloween stores, or one of those stores. It was a DSW converted into a Halloween store, and I was in it, and I looked across the store, and I saw a girl from my classes. And when I say all the same classes, I mean that there was somewhere between like no less than 12, but no more than 20 people in any class at any given time. They were small classes, and we did all the same like senior year stuff and went to dances in the same groups and stuff like that, because that was the only social circle I really had in high school, was the honors nerds. And one of the girls from my classes, I saw her across the way in this store in Washington, D.C. from South Georgia. Like, I went to high school in a city much farther south than where I am right now in Savannah. And I saw her. And so I ran across the store to her, and I was like, hey, first name, last name. Oh my gosh. Hey, how are you? And she looked at me like, she was like, how do I know you? Do I know you from like X college name that she went to? I honestly don't even remember. It was one of the Christian Southern colleges. But like, girl legitimately could not remember who the hell I was. Granted, I look a little different these days and looked different these days than I did back then, but she had no idea who she was talking to. And so that kind of further cemented this concept that like people didn't really see me when I was growing up, like as a kid and as a teenager. Didn't get a lot of attention, and that was fine because I wasn't allowed to have it. I wasn't allowed to engage in it. It was fine. My job was to do well in school, and that was it. So just, I guess that's all to say that now, to be in a space where so many people have opinions about me, whether positive or negative — I don't hear a lot of neutral opinions about me, though I'm sure they exist — is so weird. It's weird. It's not something I know how to adjust to, and I don't know if I will ever learn to adjust to it. It's just so strange to have so many people have so many opinions on just who you are as a person when you grew up with people generally not caring and generally just thinking you're a good person. And that's really all people really said. I didn't have conflict with anybody growing up, aside from like a stray bully here or there that would say things that just like off the wall weren't true. Yeah, I didn't have conflict with anybody. I got along with the people that I did interact with. So this is weird. It's weird, but that's what happens when you can have like any sort of spotlight on you. So, Marie Jensen has a pretty neutral opinion of me. That works. That's fine. That's what I'm used to. So let's see. Rachel says the nug is full of spice today, and I love it. You're funny. I love you, Rachel. Thank you. So yeah, what were we talking about 41 minutes ago? Actually, 40 minutes ago because I was a minute late. Yeah. So just returning to the fashion for a quick minute. If you have a tiny rib cage, check out this dress on Depop. Take it off my hands because there's no way I'll be able to wear it. But yeah, let's chat. I see that note. Producer Leaf, it's gonna be what it is gonna be. We were talking about Shane Dawson's return to the internet, and I of course, like I just made a video about Shane Dawson. But the funny thing is that concept for that video, if you haven't seen it, I made a video about the friendship between Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star, and how how toxic that friendship was, and how it really just played a major hand in every single Dramageddon that happened from 2018 to 2020. So there are 3 of them, and so around the time that not only Shane and Jeffree were both making their returns to YouTube. Yes, I understand that Jeffree didn't like leave YouTube the way that Shane did, but for all intents and purposes, like these people were not making like regular content. And so I asked you guys, what do you want to talk about? And more people than anything else said that they wanted to talk about the return of Shane Dawson. And there are different ways of looking at this. To be honest with you, I'm not all that excited about a Shane Dawson return to the internet. Just flat out, like my base opinion, I don't really care about like the content that he's putting out. Maybe because he's put something out and I taste tested it for like 9 minutes and I just could not get into it. So if you haven't seen, if you haven't seen, not only Shane Dawson, but Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star both returned to the internet with the video. Shane Dawson did, I guess this is the first part of a 3-part series called The Haunting of Jane Dawson. The Haunting, Producer Leaf. The Haunting of Shane Dawson. It looks like it's a part 1 of 3 series. And I could have put on my let's forget about any disdain about Shane Dawson hat. Like I can do that with certain creators where I'm just like, let's forget that I didn't like them for this and that reason and see if this content is on its own compelling in any way. And I could not find that video to be compelling in any way at all. And I've heard a couple of other people kind of say similar things, that it was just kind of a glorified house tour. Now, like I said, it's a part 1 of 3, so it looks like they're going to get into, so if I haven't made it clear, part 1 is Shane and Rylan moved to Colorado, which like good for them, because if things are just not going well there for you in LA and you're canceled and it's doing terrible things for your mental health, because listen, at the end of the day, Sean Dawson, here we go. I'm not going to get these names right. At the end of the day, Shane Dawson is a human being, and whether or not we want him canceled is neither here nor there when talking about what he should do that is best for his mental health. So if that means moving to Colorado, being closer to Ryland's family, getting away from the bad juju that is LA, from where is what I hear from a lot of people, then good, do that. Their house is super cute from what I could tell. It's so horribly decorated. Oh, it's so bad. I watched a little bit of Nick DiRamio's video on it, and he referred to that sign that Shane reads off of and referred to it as something that is like you get straight out of a Home Goods. Like when we laugh on this channel and definitely on Sajak's channel about like live, laugh, love vibes, that's what that sign was. But like, oh God, every time they buy something and they're like, look at this thing that we bought for the house. I'm like, your beautiful home. Your beautiful home that you're filling with. What did Nick say? It looks like the store attached to a Cracker Barrel. That's what it looks like. Like a huge M&M with a Christmas hat and a polar bear with a Christmas hat and this like ugly ass like bling pumpkin. Like everything's ugly. Everything's ugly. And I remember in their last home in Southern California, LA, I'm not sure if it was in LA proper. They had this big, beautiful home, and their entire kitchen was lined with just all these weird tchotchkes. And I'm like, stop it. Get a decorator. This place is too beautiful for this. Despite what I think of you, your home deserves better. So, yeah. So the house tour didn't do anything for me in that regard because it's just, they just are not, they're not respecting this home. Though I do think that the home itself is really cute. But I couldn't gather what the video was about. I would not have guessed. I'm not gonna say you would not have guessed. You decide for yourself. I would not have guessed that this video was part one of any sort of haunting series. And I want for the rest of this series to have something interesting. And they've shown at the very end, they showed little clips of what's to come. You know, like this cemetery has this many people, we saw a ghost here and there. But the problem with that is that I've seen Shane Dawson's like scary videos, and there's something lacking there. They did the Queen Mary, is it called? The ship that's docked there in Southern California that's supposed to be super haunted. If you guys care about, like, if you like haunted stuff, spooky stuff, what is the little girl's name? I'm sure I could look it up, but there are videos of this. If you believe in ghosts or you're at all intrigued by the concept of them, the Queen Mary. If I didn't look up any of these names because I didn't know I was going to talk about them. Go easy on me. Take me to Sioux Court if you need to. But oh, I saw that I got water ganged. That's what happens when I look at the chat. If you really care for some actual spooky content as an alternative to what Shane Dawson has tried to serve us with the Queen Mary, there is a little girl. Why do I want to say her name is like Janie, little Mary? No, not Mary. Little Janie, something, maybe a J name, perhaps not. But there is a ghost that haunts the pool inside that ship. And there are people who have compared videos of like quote unquote ghost hunters talking to that ghost like in the 90s compared to like 20 years later. And it's creepy. It's just, that's all I'll say. Does anybody know the name of this ghost off the top of their head? Let me look up Queen Mary ghost. Oh, no. There goes my camera. Can y'all still see me? Are we good? Or is that angle all kinds of messed up? No, it's fine. What is her name? Queen Mary ghost. I'll say pool. Is it even the Queen Mary? I did a quick search and I'm not seeing the name of the ghost. It's a little girl, though. Yeah, I did a quick search and I don't see it anymore. Maybe that was just a ghost story I was intrigued by way too long ago, and now the internet doesn't care. Yes, it's the Queen Mary. Yes, but do we know the name? You found the thing. Look at you. My goodness. Leaf is a needy. Jackie. Little Jackie. Thank you, producer Leaf. Sorry. Jane, close your eyes because I'm going to try to shift the camera back to where it was. There we go. We'll try. Ugh, I hate that. Little Jackie. So, little Jackie, freaky as hell. Look her up if you're into that sort of thing. If you are easily spooked by that sort of thing and don't want to be, don't do it. Don't blame me either. But yeah, so I kind of wish that they gave us more of that kind of content, like actually go into these spaces. And they did that a little bit with their Queen Mary series back when they had their A team, like, you know, Garrett and Andrew, and I don't think Drew Monson was with them, but like, you don't have those friends anymore. What are you going to do? Like, I might watch it to see if it's there, like the actual, like, scary content, but I like, there was something about watching this that was like, this feels really contrived. This feels like me taking my camera over to a Savannah cemetery and being like, let's look for orbs, guys, and just like not really seeing anything. So I was, overall very bored with this one video back, even if I tried to suspend any dislike that I have for Shane Dawson. One thing that I noticed about, so Jeffree's video, so that was like 40 something minutes of, like I said, just a house tour. That was just like all over the place. What I will say though is, maybe we'll get into this a little bit of this after I kind of recap both of these videos, but Shane did like make jokes about his cancellation, and in particular reading this sign, which I think Def Noodles covered as well. PewDiePie mocked this sign apparently, but that live, laugh, love type of sign. It was one of those, in this house we pray, in this house we laugh, like things like that. And it was like, in this house we make mistakes. And he's like joking about like, yup, that's me. And I'm totally fine with a joke like that. Like laughing at yourself for being like, it's obvious. Like, we know you as somebody who's very flawed and like has made really stupid choices in the past. But then there was a line where he was like, in this house, we forgive quickly. So when he said something like, we apologize, we make mistakes, he was like, I'll get on that. And then when he read off, we forgive quickly, he goes, how about you get on that? And that rubbed me wrong. I know it was a joke, but still, it's like your first video back. You're going to go and tell your audience that like you're going to hope to try to win back. You're going to tell them that they need to get to forgiving you when you haven't necessarily done the work to earn that forgiveness. I don't know. I don't know that that's the right move. So more on that later. As for Jeffree Star's video, that too, what an embarrassment for Jeffree Star's soul. A video called something like, finding our makeup in Nordstrom Rack. I said in my last video that we didn't want it. And guess what? I didn't want it. I watched it for the purpose of making this podcast. But it was exactly what, if you haven't watched it, take a moment to imagine what that video would be like from Jeffree Star. Surprise, what you imagined is exactly what that video was. It was 13 minutes of Jeffree Star talking about how he heard their cosmetics were in Nordstrom Rack. Okay. And then he goes to Nordstrom Rack and they find specifically Shane Dawson's makeup. And he buys all of it. And you know he buys all of it because he doesn't want it to be seen in these stores. So he buys all of it and takes it back. And you can tell the embarrassment in him. He says something like, I kind of quoted it here. Let me see. He started opening the product and he said, I'm not going to put this on my face. Who knows what's happened to it since I manufactured it. And I thought, what? Surprise, surprise. What a snob Jeffree Star is to have the nerve to say, I'm not going to put this on my face because who knows what's happened since I manufactured it. It's not like all of Jeffree Star cosmetics go straight from the warehouse to the consumer. That's not the case. We know that his cosmetics at the very least are sold in Morphe stores. So are you telling me that there's some nasty stuff going on in Nordstrom Rack stores that's not going on in Morphe stores? Should we pull up like statistics about like who's likely to shoplift for one? Like there was just something about that statement that read to me like people who shop at Nordstrom Rack are less than, and they're doing nasty things with the cosmetics that they wouldn't do in a Morphe store. Yeah, and on that note, make sure that you lick the video, please. Isabel says orgies, obviously. He half-heartedly took back his previous comments about TJ Maxx, etc., says Rainy Day. Yeah, that's the other thing too that he noted, because he had to he put his foot in his mouth because he was like, listen, I know that I made a joke about Kat Von D's makeup being sold in a TJ Maxx, I think it was. It's just that I was in a bad place. I was so hurt. I was hurt because that was my literal best friend and blah blah. It's like, yeah, to some degree, that's probably why you say the shit you say. But also, you look down on people who shop in these stores and you look down on people whose products end up in those stores, and you're trying to find a way to make yourself feel better about this. Because he was also like, because then he shows Shane, and Shane, like, I don't know if it's the poor boy persona, or perhaps it's because Shane just doesn't have the same, I would say, level of taste, but I don't think Jeffree Star has taste. He has expensive taste, but not good taste. Shane says something like, "Well, Nordstrom Rack is bougie," which it's not. Nordstrom is, I would say, maybe it's a little bougier than TJ Maxx, or a Kohl's or something like that. Jazz, yes, he's very tacky. But Shane's like, "Well, Nordstrom Rack is bougie," and then Jeffrey's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, they have YSL and blah blah blah." And it's just like, oh, you're like, why even make this video? Just go buy, if you got to do it, just go buy all of the Jeffree Star cosmetics out of all of these stores and just don't say anything. And I don't think anybody would have noticed. Like, you're just shining a light on the thing that you're clearly embarrassed by. It was just, ugh. But I didn't like the comment about, like, I'm not going to put this on my face because of where it's been. It's like, oh no, like, Morphe store, okay, but Nordstrom Rack, no. The heathens that shop in that store. Sarcasm. So yeah, I really think that both of these men had better resources to come back with a better video if they are going to come back after a year. Jeffree, like, what are you doing? Shane, you can at least argue that he's like trying, because he's like putting together this series, and we can just say that maybe like this first episode was just like leading into what's going to be better. I don't know that these next 2 episodes are really going to make this first episode better, but you can at least argue that like he put some time into this and that maybe the next couple of videos will be better. But lackluster, bleak on both of their parts. But Jeffree, I think maybe Jeffree's was even more embarrassing. Huh. That just occurred to me. So let me take a quick water, gang. Did Nick DiRamio talk about how Shane Dawson didn't plan the video? I watched part of it and I heard some sentiments along those lines, and it's so true. Like, there was no structure to Shane's video whatsoever. It was a lot of the same humor that like wasn't even funny ever. Because there was a period clearly where I thought Shane Dawson was funny. I said in the very beginning clip of my last video, like, that I liked the two of them in some capacity at some point. But just like jokes about dying and just like, which I don't think most people ever find all that funny when Shane makes them. If you want to sit down and have a real moment, and that is something that I think Nick DiRamio did touch on, was just like the importance of talking to his audience about the things that he has done to work on himself. That is important. And that is something that he should tell his audience about, because there are plenty of people who are going to love him and support him no matter what. There are plenty of people who are done with him and who are going to be done with him no matter what. There's actually probably a good portion of the audience, I think, that can be won over time. And that's unfortunately probably how it's going to go, how it tends to go with YouTubers. I'm going to be real with you. I do think that outrage and cancel culture are too hard on YouTubers, and, public figures in general. Not so much celebrities. They're kind of shielded from this, not entirely. I do think that cancel culture and outrage culture are too hard on these people. We'll talk about it on Patreon. But at the same time, I don't think that these people do nearly what they need to in order to get their careers back, which they end up getting back. So it's almost like it's almost a zero-sum game where it's like I could like conceivably feel for you, but if you're able to like get all your shit back just by like going away for a year and then not properly addressing this stuff, then I don't know how bad should I feel for you. So let's see. I don't like this, so I'm going to where was I with that? Sorry, I'm looking at I'm looking at producer notes. So then that begs the question, like, so the big question is, should Shane Dawson come back to YouTube? And first I have to ask myself, does he need to? There are plenty of creators that are at a certain size to where they can't afford to leave YouTube for too long. The first people that I can think of, only just by happenstance, I think of Dustin Daly and Nick Snyder. Love them or hate them. That's not what this is about. But we know that Nick's mother passed away due to COVID, I believe, in the last like month or so. It was about 3 weeks to a month ago or so. And they've had to continue making content. And that kind of makes sense to me when you're talking about creators that are like at 100K, right? You know, they're big enough to where this is their full-time job, but not so big that they've got like fuck you money put away. Shane Dawson, as much as he likes to pretend that he's poor and relatable, should really have either plenty of money to where he does not need to work, or at least with just being as famous as he is, could do other things to subsist, could take on other jobs and survive just fine. So in a sense, I don't know that I believe he needs to. Not that he ever said he needed to come back. I don't even know that I believe he loves being on YouTube. There are some people who feel like they need to come back because they love it that much. I don't know, but I couldn't remember how to spell the name. Oh, that's funny. I don't get the feeling that Shane likes being in the public eye. I don't get the feeling that he likes being on YouTube. He might enjoy making content, but I really think that for however good his videos might have been, that would have been largely Andrew. A lot of it was. In fact, I think when he was doing his conspiracy videos, which those weren't too bad in the grand scheme of Shane Dawson videos. Wasn't it Garrett who was putting together a lot of those stories? Or was it Shane's brother? I remember him talking about how somebody would help him like write the scripts for the stories because they were really interested in that stuff. So I know that he has a brother who's very much into conspiracy theories, and Garrett is very much into like the spooky stuff and conspiracies. So yeah, it was Garrett, says Lainey. Yeah, I think so too. When they lived in that when he lived in that townhouse that Morgan moved into, and it has the like 3 floors, and they had the room in there where he would do his filming. I want to say that it was around that time that they talked about how Garrett would script those videos. So he doesn't have that anymore. So the quality of this content was just. Did anybody else notice that when there were like he like text put on the screen, then then for like a second after the text went away, the shadow of the black would stay there, and it didn't look intentional. It looked like an editing error, and that happened a couple of times. So perhaps it was intentional and I just don't see the artistic value in it, but I was just like, ooh, this sloppy as hell. So yeah, Oh, Nick pointed that out. Really? I know that Nick pointed out the style of the text. He compared it to, was it Insidious? He compared it to something else, but did he talk about the black outline or the black shadow that stayed? That stayed a couple of times throughout. I was jarred by that. Like, ugh, like fix that in editing, bro. Like, that's not clean. This is not the level This is not the quality that we need from you if you're going to come back with the resources that you have. My goodness. So from a content perspective, somebody said, I know Garrett and Andrew have a podcast now. I don't think they're actively making any episodes right now because they closed out their first season. But Sweet Boys was actually a lot of fun to listen to. At first, I was wary because I was like, they don't seem confident enough to be like recording themselves. And for sure, Andrew has issues with confidence. But they're just so funny together. They're just so funny talking to each other. And then you could tell that they would put in little sound effects in post. And which I've seen people do, like put in little effects and post on their podcast, but these were so well done that you would have thought that there was somebody there with a soundboard. You would have thought that it was super well integrated into what they were doing. Oh, Sweet Boys is great. I love it. I love their aesthetic too. I wish that that's what I had. Like they're able to capture what I think Portlandia wanted to capture in their beginning credits. Don't come for me, Portlandia lovers. Sorry, not a fan of the show. I gave it a chance. I tried. I associate it with being on the treadmill before COVID on my lunch breaks at work. It's not a good feeling. But yeah, going back to the content aspect of Shane Dawson, come up with something better, Shane, or really you better wow us with this Colorado haunting content. But I do think that there are a couple of different ways of looking at this. There's kind of like a very pragmatic way of looking at it. You know, should he come back? Meaning, is there a market there for him? Are there people that want to watch his videos? Because there are people who want to watch his videos from the standpoint of being fans who want him to come back. There are people who want to watch his videos from the standpoint of like guilty pleasure. I'm not going to tell anybody that I want to watch this. I want to watch this. And then there are people who want to hate watch him. So there are plenty of people who probably want to watch his videos. So the market is there. So he can come back in that sense. And in the sense that there are people that will watch his videos. I think, in fact, there was a note from producer Leaf that said currently at 4.3 million views. Yeah, clearly the market is there for him. And we're looking at this just from a business standpoint, then that says that, sure, come back to YouTube if you want to. You can. Now the question is, should you? Yeah, I mean, there's money to be made there. There's content to be watched and all of that. But I mean, of course, at the same time, is there a market for shitty content? Sure. There are people who are going to watch no matter how bad the content is. But I don't know. It's a matter of how, like, do you want to see this until it fizzles itself out? Like, if that's what you want to do, bro, then like do that. But I didn't care for this episode. But yes, should he come back? If you're talking about from a business standpoint, yeah, probably, because clearly the market is there. Clearly there are people who want to watch him. Should he come back from a kind of an ethical or a moralistic standpoint? I think that is where a lot of people in the YouTube audience get hung up on. And sorry if that's kind of degrading language. I am not a fan of Shane Dawson. Here's the thing. I can forgive somebody for being canceled for the things that they've done if they have done the work to learn from those situations. And this is where I was saying, like, Nick D pointed it out in his video, and that Shane kind of started to touch on how, like, he had recognized the things that he had done in his past and how it was wrong. And he's talked to a therapist and he's actually done work to become different. And in all honesty, like, there was a change in his content. So like something did change, but one, you didn't apologize to the Smith family. So that to me is a big one. Like, I could probably try to forgive the other things if I genuinely believe that he realized that they were wrong and that he's changed. And there are people who will drag me to the gallows for even saying that perhaps, like, I could stop giving a fuck, because guess what? I only have so many fucks to give, and I cannot reserve so much energy for Shane Dawson when, like, just like I forgot your name already, but just like somebody said that they're pretty much neutral on me. I don't care about Shane Dawson one way or enough to harbor all kinds of hatred against him for those things. If he's learned from them, great. If he's learned to be better, great. If he has not learned, but has, for all intents and purposes, has been able to put on a show and convince the world that he's better than that and just acts like he's better than that, fine, whatever. What the fuck does it matter at this point, right? But there are certain cut and dry things that are pretty like easy to do. Not easy, not that it's easy to apologize. It's not, but it's pretty simple. And if one of the few things that you need to do that you haven't done, say like Shane Dawson was canceled for blackface, not just cultural appropriation, but like actually straight up making jokes of different cultures, inappropriate content or around the sexualization of children and animals, like all of that stuff. You could argue whether or not somebody can learn from that, change and grow from that. And it's all kind of subjective. Like, has he done the things that he needs to do to prove that? Some might say yes. Some people will say there's never enough. And everybody is valid in whatever it is they believe. But there are certain cut and dry things, like apologize to the Smith family. That's so simple. Yet you're not doing it. Not that we know of. So like for me, that's just kind of a bummer, because if I were having a conversation with Shane Dawson and I said, okay, well, what about the blackface? What about the kid jokes? What about the cat jokes? What about, he could say, well, I've worked on that stuff. I've stopped doing that stuff, blah, blah, blah. I've learned from it. I apologize from it. And you could be right, but you never apologize to the Smith family. So for me, you got to take care of that before you come back to the internet. If we're just talking about just from an ethical standpoint and how I feel about, or from a cultural standpoint, kind of. So I don't, does he see surely he has to see the problem in that. I'm looking at what Chloe says about it's actually scary that after all these years, he still can't see that he is the problem. Sorry, I read that. I started responding before realizing exactly what it said. I thought you were saying like, what is the problem? Because I don't think it's that hard to see what the problem is with that exact incident, right? So just do it. Like do the thing that you need to do. Make an apology to that family. Like, we care about the safety of children. Show us that. And I don't know why you wouldn't take the time to do that. Like who is in your ear advising you not to do that? So there's that part that I can't quite get past. Then the other thing was that kind of like, this is where I was saying like Nick D was touching on this, like him talking about these things. But I wish that if he were going to have a conversation about the things that he's been reflecting on, the things that he's been working on in therapy and all of that, have a serious conversation with your audience about it. It's almost like Shane Dawson wants to hide everything behind a bad joke. It's a lot easier to be like, yeah, I'm a shit person, blah, 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 blah. Therapist, this and that, could have died, almost tried to. Well, did I? I don't know. Like, it's so easy to like tuck all of your serious issues into these like shitty jokes, and it's more palatable for yourself to get them out. So what is a lot harder to do is to actually be vulnerable and to be like, I'm going to talk about this thing, and a lot of people are not going to accept it, and that's my own doing, and that's just what I got to do if I want to come back. Or you could just not come back. As far as whether or not I think he should be allowed to come back and be monetized, or I'm still trying to figure out what I think of deplatforming in general. I know that I have supported the concept before when it's come to creators that are being actually like severely harmful and harassing people with their platforms, and I still might maintain that opinion. But as for whether or not he should be allowed to actually have a platform, if he's not breaking the law, then technically I don't know that I really give a fuck. Like, it's all up to each person to decide whether or not they consume his content. So I look George Pruitt says I look fine as hell. I thought you said funny as hell. I'm like, what does that mean? Thank you. Um, let's see. What else did I note here? So yeah, so there are different perspectives to look at this from. There's just like a clearly clinical business standpoint. Is there room for him to come back? Is there a market for him to come back? Yes. Is the is the is the content quality up to snuff? No. Um And then from an ethical standpoint, everybody's got a different opinion on what it takes to be forgiven, if somebody can be forgiven, should somebody have a platform, what should that look like? And I'm still trying to figure out what I think in general about those things. But I think I'm starting to lean against deplatforming with a lot of cases unless somebody is actively, like I said, breaking laws and harassing people with their platforms. If people want to consume the content of a shitty person who didn't apologize for his mistakes, like, let people do it. It happens all the time. For some reason, we tend to be so gatekeepy when it comes to YouTube, but this shit is happening all the time, everywhere, and like people on the internet themselves can be really shitty, and we just like let it happen. So that's not in support of Shane Dawson. That's not in defense of Shane Dawson. That's just like, still trying to workshop that idea and how that works out. So we'll see how that pans out for me. Well, looks like we've got some information about little Jackie that came in. The ghost in the Queen Mary. Thank you, producer Leaf. Let's see what it says here. Perhaps it's little Jackie's tragic history that inspired her to stick around the haunted vessel, but we may never know. Jacqueline Torrin was 5 or 6 when she drowned in the ship's second-class pool, which is now the Royal Theatre. Visitors report hearing little Jackie splashing, calling for her parents, and even responding to questions when prompted. Some visitors believe Jackie has a friend, Sarah, who drowned in the same pool in 1949. When did Jackie drown, though? Is it just like a different ghost that she's befriended, or did they drown at the same time? Because I feel like little Jackie was like somewhere around the 20s or something, right? I'm super like, that is one of the scary stories that like that I'm for some reason it just so caught my interest when I first heard about it, and I was just like watching all these videos of little Jackie because she actually like interacts with people in video. It's crazy. Oh, Jane says, I'm glad she's not alone. That's so sweet. And Jane also said everything can be perceived from multiple perspectives. Nuance is a thing, even if the internet won't believe it. It's like hashtag Watergang. You deserve that. I agree. So cheers to that. Soap and Clay, you're back. Hello. Soap and Clay says, I know Jimmy Snow may be swear words here. Not really. It's fine to talk about him. But he and Dom did a really interesting podcast this morning regarding cancellation. It was a different perspective for sure. Highly recommend giving it a listen. I'd be open to that with whatever time I can find. I don't hate Jimmy Snow. I don't. I think that he talks a little bit confidently for somebody who doesn't have the wherewithal that he's convinced people he has. I think that he is a little too arrogant in spaces where he's meant to be flexing some humility. But am I open to redeeming him? Sure. I don't think he's a bad person. That's the thing, is that on YouTube, we get, we as the audience members, because keep in mind, sometimes I'm an audience member, we get in the mindset that people are either good or bad. And there's almost no degree to which people are good or bad. They're either good or bad. And sometimes that all just depends on whether or not these people are associated with somebody I like or somebody I dislike. Or like somebody I had a good experience with or somebody I had a bad experience with. And everybody's just pushed to these polar opposites of good and bad. And there's nothing in between. And there's no space for nuance. And if there's no space for nuance, there's no room for conversation. And if there's no room for conversation, the only the only thing there's room for is really heightened emotions, really heightened love and adoration, as well as outrage. That's all there's room for when there's no room for nuance and conversation, because people don't want to have conversation. They just want to shout, in my opinion. So that's all to say that I am not closed off to the idea of a redemption or coming around to somebody like Jimmy Snow. I just the last couple of videos I saw him in, I actually didn't watch his content before these last couple of situations that he's been in. So I've only watched, and not even fully, because each of them was like over an hour long, and I just kind of like got sidetracked. But I just got turned off by a couple of the things he said in these videos. But like, he's another example, just like I said about Shane Dawson. Like, I didn't like Jimmy Snow. I actually didn't like him back when the whole thing with Rachel started. But I can believe that this has probably been hell for his mental health, and I don't want that for him. I don't want that for Shane. I don't want that for Jimmy Snow. I really don't. I don't want a hellish mental health experience for just about anybody on this platform. And unfortunately, I think there are plenty of people who want to see creators not just crash and burn, but just like really experience their own personal hell. Like, all day panic attacks, high cholesterol for the first time in their lives, not being able to sleep, getting cold sweats at night, having full on mental breakdowns multiple times a week, freaking appendicitis. Like, I'm just thinking about in my life, like, ways that stress has manifested itself in me, and just thinking about those times where stress has done those things to me. It's just, it's YouTube, right? Like, at some point, I know some people would be like, well, so-and-so deserves it and you deserve it too, and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, do we ever look back and go like, guys, this is YouTube. There's so much more out there that's more important than this. There's so much more to life than having 50 sock accounts on every single platform so that you can attack not even the creator you dislike, but the best friend of the creator that you dislike, and making her life a living hell. Like, is that what you want to do with your time? I'm not talking to most of you, but there's probably one person watching who does that shit. And I'm just like, is this your life? My God. I just happened to see a comment. Curious, I have opinions about influencers sexually and romantically pursuing their fans. That's a tough one, because generally I'm against it. Like, when it was happening with Jimmy Snow, I probably would have said unequivocally, no, bad power imbalance there. And there is a power imbalance. I just don't want to chalk up everything to power play and power balances and imbalances, because I think we've done a lot of that online, is equating every single aspect of human interaction to how much power and privilege they have, when there might actually be other factors at play. So, as an example, I am conflicted when it comes to, and I said this in a history of scandals and controversy. So like I usually say, take me to Sioux Court if you don't like me for it. But I am conflicted about how I feel about James Charles, not with him talking to minors. That is unequivocally bad, shitty, disgusting, nasty, hate it. But the way that James Charles has interacted with other men that turned out to be straight men, but who have like flirted with him and such. There have been times where I have been on the side of the bi sister thing, where I'm like, oh, you're trying to manipulate these men into thinking that they're gay, and you're using your star power in order to do it. But then there are other times where I'm like, I watched Jeff Wittick straight up flirt with Jeffree, or why do I keep doing this? With James on his channel. And keep in mind, this was all before the Vlog Squad scandal and cancellation that happened this year. But in general, I've been a fan of the Vlog Squad. I've enjoyed watching them over the years. Don't watch them anymore these days. I'm just consuming a very different kind of content. But I watched Jeff, who is, from everything that he's told us, very much straight. And I watched him flirt with James Charles, and not only that, but James Charles called him out and said, like, you got very flirty with me in text. And he was like reading them or something. He said, like, yeah, you told me that that OMFG, you look so good, and I'd be open to trying anything once, or something like that. Very flirty messages. And that kind of stuff, when I hear it, I'm just like, what are it makes me wonder for these influencers how they can tell what people are after when they do pursue them. To some degree, there's no resisting, the temptation of being able to talk to a celebrity that you love. So it's like crack. And at the same time, I've never been a celebrity that's had to deal with the temptation of not talking to somebody I'm highly attracted to as a celebrity. And like, I don't know that dynamic. That's all to say, I do think it's possible for people on both sides of that kind of coin. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm not talking about Jimmy Snow. I'm not talking about James Charles. I'm just talking about that dynamic. Influencer, public figure, celebrity, and layperson or fan. Like, I do think it's possible for both parties or either party to have intentions that are not pure, or to be after something, trying to get something out of that. And the reason I was talking about James Charles is because I do think that he's fucked up by looking in all the wrong places when we're just talking about men who are of age. But so that's why you need to stick to things like Raya, or just, dating people who are of a certain stature so that they understand your life and you're not dealing with these weird power dynamics. But I do get a vibe off of people like Gage Gomez, and it sounds like there have been a few people in that camp. And if you don't know who Gage Gomez is, he's a young man that accused James of doing what a lot of these people were accusing him at that time, saying like, well, I was bi-curious, and then once I made out with James, decided that I was straight. Which that's not exactly what Gage said. I don't even know if they did make out, but I'm just saying, like, situations like that happened a few times with James. And it just makes me wonder. And then it just so happens that these men are like up and coming models. Same with Jeff Wittick, right? Like, he was a model type, up and coming entertainer, actor type. Like, it just makes me wonder if, because you can get mad at me for saying that this might be happening, but at the same time, you can't say that for sure this is not happening. It makes me wonder if people are trying to take advantage of somebody with that star power using sexuality to get somewhere with that. So, and Sajak pointed out she bought chips. If you don't know who Gage is the one that's eating tortilla chips in his video. I hate it so much. James went straight to sending nudes to some of them, Jazzy says. Somebody said, Jane says, they made out. I'd be so much more sympathetic if not for the children. Sure. But I'm just looking at these as isolated incidents. And that's one thing that I think I might have to remind people that I'm doing, because we got to remember that, like, for instance, in my video that I put out Sunday, the video that I put out Sunday about Shane and Jeffree, James very much was the victim throughout that video. That doesn't mean that James is the victim in every scenario in his life. He has done some abhorrent things that we found out since those situations I talked about, but that doesn't change the fact that, like I said, I don't support James Charles, but that wasn't fair play for them to fuck with him and his mental health, full well knowing that somebody was concerned that he might be tempted to do something irreversible. But I don't want for any of these people, no matter how much I dislike them, I don't want any of them to jump off the 50th floor of a hotel. And Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star just kind of like brushed aside that possibility and soldiered on with doing what they could to really sabotage his career. And when I think about that, that's when I go back to thinking like, I don't know if I can get past this whole like, does Shane Dawson, because is his character redeemable in any way? Because then I think about that, and that really does it for me. Making mistakes and stupid decisions and ignorant and like just whatever you want to call them. If they were all jokes, they were jokes and they were stupid, and you never should have made them. If we pretend, give them every benefit of the doubt and say that every single one of those things was just a joke and he didn't mean any harm. And I hate to say it, I don't hate to say it, but the internet's going to hate me saying it. The internet bears some burden with things like that when they allowed those things to happen for years and years and years and years and years. And then 13 years later, all of a sudden, these things that were very public are now a problem. He is responsible for doing those things. Don't get me wrong, but the internet is not blameless if they allowed it to happen. So that's something to keep in mind, is that people should be held responsible for the things they do, but if they're in situations where like it's just generally accepted and people are like consuming it, entertained by it, laughing at it, then like how do we expect people to know better? And maybe that was happening. I wasn't consuming his content at the time. I just don't know that I completely agree with completely vilifying somebody for something that was very public years ago. Though I'm very disgusted by that. It makes me mad at all of YouTube. That's the thing, is it's not me exonerating Shane Dawson. It's me being mad at everyone that allowed it to happen. And I think that we should be allowed to feel that way, especially when you're talking about like children being in danger. This has kind of gotten all over the place, but whatever. Yeah, Tati was not blameless either. Like it's such a mess. My goodness, all of it is. Not only just like YouTube and YouTubers, but a lot of the people who consume it, and the politics of YouTube are so fucked. But what was I even saying about all that? But in the context of just the situations I was talking about on Sunday, James Charles was the victim. Is he the victim in other scenarios? No. But when it comes to him flirting with other guys, using his sexuality to convince guys who are straight, but maybe say that they're bi-curious, and then those guys happen to have something to gain by knowing James Charles because they perhaps want to be models or actors or influencers or whatever. And like, how many of these, like, let's be real, like how many of these young straight guys did we hear them say like, and they're not guys who, not all of them, but we've seen a couple of these guys on TikTok that are like bro-y jock types. Like they don't seem to be into makeup at all. And they just do this whole like the one who was like, as a joke, somebody said that I should message James Charles and see if he wants to date me. So I did it. Look at this. So embarrassing. What an idiot. And it's just like, well, what are you doing this for? Like, people frustrate me to no end, especially the people who like congregate around like the beauty community. Honestly, like that place has been drama since before any other community was drama. So yeah, I don't even know what the original question was. Oh, I think the original question was about people dating their fans or being sexually or romantically active with their fans. I'm reading the comments, which is why I'm a little quiet. So yeah, it's such a tricky game. I would just say, just don't do it. Just play it safe and don't do it. At the same time, there have been celebrities that have married fans and it's worked out, but you have to, and that's such a personal thing for each couple to figure out whether or not they can actually have a healthy dynamic. Because there are power, even though I said like not everything is about power and influence and privilege and those dynamics, that's not the only thing at play, but it is there at play. So it's up to each individual couple, to figure out whether or not they're able to eliminate that disparity. And I just don't know how one would do it. Yeah, those are my notes. Let's see. Is there more information about little Jackie? I can't find an exact date for Jackie's death, but it was when the ship was active doing transatlantic voyages. So maiden voyage was 1936, so probably around then. Apparently Jackie will sometimes squeeze people's hands. Ooh. Don't love that. I don't love that. That's creepy. I know I've been tempted to like, do I say like what I saw of little Jackie, or do I let people just like watch for themselves? But yeah, they have like she has like responded to questions that people have asked. That's what I'm going to leave it at, because I just want you guys to see that for yourselves. Tati saying the vulgar words, sucking. Let me see. You guys are talking about Sims now. I was just seeing if there was anywhere in the chat that I could jump in, but I may have exhausted my thoughts on all this, but also definitely ventured into the territory of saying things that were probably controversial, because in what I might argue is nuance. There's just so much, like, I don't know. There's just so many ways, different perspectives to take on so many of these things. And one thing that we need to consider is that we don't know shit about shit. Like, there are certain things that are just fact, and you see it and you're just like, you see a video of Shane Dawson mock jerking it in front of a poster of a child. There are only so many ways you can cut that, right? And so like, that's something that's why I said, for me, it's just like, okay, well, have you apologized to the family? Have you even really acknowledged that you've done that? There are certain things like that are cut and dry, like seeing that James Charles was talking to minors on Snapchat, TikTok and Snapchat and all that. There are certain things that are cut and dry. There are other things that we don't know all of the context to. So if somebody's asking a question about like Jimmy Snow talking to fans, I also don't know all of what's out there about that. But just, I guess I'm saying this also kind of from the perspective of now somebody who has been not there, like haven't done that stuff, but from the perspective of somebody who has had videos made about her recently and then heard the creator and their audience say things. And I hate this so much. I said this at the very beginning of owning a YouTube platform. I said it about Creepshow Art before Creepshow Art was canceled. I said, I don't like Creepshow Art. She titles her videos with speculation as if they're fact. I hate that. I hate that. I hate when people go to the internet with the speculation and state it as a fact. So, like I said, I'm not going to get all way into it, but some people have been concerned and they're asking questions. Like I said, there was a creator who made a video about a child that is in my audience and how I've become friends with that family because of the timing and the situations and the circumstances of when that child not only kind of became a member of my audience, but also joined a support group I had on Facebook because I didn't have a big following at that time. So I had like a little emotional support group in the very beginning of having a YouTube channel back in the glory days before things got all kinds of complicated. And for those of you who are wondering, if for those of you who just have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, then I recommend you join my Patreon at the new $2 tier, and we can talk about this more. But for those who are wondering, because I do want to clear my name of certain lies that are being said, no, I did not tell this child, her mother, or any of her family members, or anyone about this video. I didn't watch the video. Somebody told me about it. And then it was probably maybe like an hour later, I got a text message from that mother saying, OMG, I just saw a video that has my blood boiling. I heard my daughter crying in her room. I went to go find out what it was about. And then I saw the video and I'm very upset. The daughter didn't tell me about the video because, quite frankly, I told her that she should not be watching content that upsets her. And she felt really, really bad that she felt responsible for this video, this negative video being made about me. To that child, you don't need to feel bad about what adults are saying about each other online. That's not your fault. That is not your fault. But when it comes to stating speculation as fact, oh, and then another thing I saw in the comments was, for sure, Alicia went to the mom to get her riled up in DMs and was talking to the family, messaging the family in DMs to get them riled up and plays them like a fiddle. No. This family, I'll tell you what, the mom reached out to me and then the older sister reached out to me. I did not proactively reach out to anybody about this situation. And so that's just all to say, like, for one, like I said, to clarify for some people who are like, hey, what's going on with you in that situation? But also just to say that some of the things that people say online as fact, I have to seriously consider whether or not this is credible. Because I don't want to find myself getting stuck in that trap of saying things that, sure, it can sound as sensical as all get out, but fact of the matter is you don't know until you know. So that's why I was saying there's certain cut and dry things that we've seen from like people like Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star and James Charles and blah, blah, blah. We've seen things that could almost have no other explanation. But try to keep some sort of balance when it comes to things that you don't know all the facts about. And I'm not just talking about myself. I just use myself as an example. But that's why with some people, like talking about Jimmy Snow as an example, that's why with some people, I'll just be like, meh, get a bad feeling, think this might be happening, but that's speculation. You'll hear that say a lot. That's sorry. I have to approve a message that just came through. If I don't know all the facts about a situation, and that's why I irritate the shit out of people in my life. And I actually had somebody explain to me that this might actually be like, Alicia, this might be your autism at play because you take everything very literally and you take everybody for their word. But one thing that I know gets under the skin of some of my friends is that they'll be like, so-and-so is doing this for whatever reason, or so-and-so is lying about this or that. And I'll go, yeah, but they could have done this, or they could have meant this, or it could be that this is happening. And I don't like to play devil's advocate, but I will not accept something as fact if it is not in fact fact. And I have people saying things about me that are not fact. So that even reinforces that in me. When somebody comes forward and they're like, so-and-so, you know what so-and-so is doing? They're doing this to do this. And then they're going to do this with it. And I'm like, yeah, but how do we know? Well, just because that's what kind of person they are. I'm like, yeah, but people think that I'm that kind of person too. I've seen so many lies about myself on the internet. No, I'm not going to go and believe your speculation about this person simply because we don't like them. So, I was, that's so funny. When I was saying I have friends that get irritated because I play like devil's advocate or whatever, I was thinking about Amberin, and then Jazzy said, Amberin confirmed that on Girl Man's, LOL. Yeah, Amberin is a really good example because she will get very frustrated and she'll have a very strong feeling about something that's happening. But if I don't know that it's happening for fact, I will not accept it as fact. That's just the way it's going to be with me. Pixity says it's not even playing devil's advocate. It's seeing the best in people because it's so unnatural for us to lie or be deceitful or hurtful that we can't believe other people would be on purpose. I agree with that. There are a lot of times, and in fact, I was talking to Jake last night when I said that, like, I do think that there's one narcissist in my family, and I thought about something very, 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 very extremely hurtful and damaging that they did to me and my family in a moment where I was just totally trusting them. And I just remember asking Jake, like, why would they do that? Like, why? Like, I guess, like, I can conceptualize why hurt people do the things that they hurt. Like, perhaps they're unhappy, perhaps they don't feel like they're in good social standing with others. So in order to make themselves feel better, they have to put others in bad standing with each other and just create chaos. Like, I can conceptualize why. But, like, in my heart of hearts, like, I can't see myself doing some of these things, so I don't understand how other people can bring themselves to do it. However, I am trying to understand and trying to, I guess, temper my naivete by saying, like, the fact of the matter is that people do these things. Now, I think when you have a brain like mine, not to totally put you on the spot and call you out, Pixity, but I feel like you kind of are on a similar wavelength with me on this sort of thing. But it's, and I know that there are other people, other specifically autistic people that I've talked to about this sort of concept, that it's like, I don't know how to be suspicious of people because I don't know where to draw the line. I don't know, like, at what point to start being suspicious of somebody. It's all or nothing. Like, and for most people, it's trust. It's trust. It's trust. I take you at your word, whatever you say, whatever you, and if you burn me, then fine. But I'm not going to go down as a jaded person, assuming that everybody's lying to me when they're not. But when somebody does something to so egregiously betray your trust, as a couple people have done since I've started this YouTube channel, like somebody making up just horrible stories and putting my life through the ringer. And I have had to take those people and say, like, and it's not even out of a place of like disgust or disdain. It's just like, I got to protect myself now. And now I don't know how and when to trust you when you've so betrayed my trust. I need to actually just kind of like keep you at arm's length. It's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't want the best for you. It's that this relationship is harmful to me, and I have no way to discern when you're being honest and when you're being dishonest. It's a really weird thing because it's like, I don't have that chip in my brain to really know, like, when somebody is lying, because if somebody says something, I just trust them. It's the way it should be. I was talking to somebody about the show Atypical, and how the main character Sam is autistic, and he has a neurotypical best friend, Zahid, and he says Zahid is my best friend, and he thinks that neurotypical people are the weird ones, that autistic people are the ones who see the world as it is, and it's neurotypicals that attribute meaning to where it doesn't belong. And I was like, yes. Yes, yes. I think a lot of people probably hear that and think, hell yes. And that's just kind of where I live, is just taking people at their word. So when I see just a blatant lie about me, not necessarily because the person is trying to lie about me, but because they are assuming that there's something shady going on with me, or that there's something about my character they don't like. So they just assume that something shady is happening that's not happening. Then that really fucking gets my goat. Because it's like, I don't even do that to you. I don't even do that to you. And I have reason to dislike you. I didn't do shit to you. Not yet. Like, so I don't know. That's a whole concept that is also probably a conversation, like I said, to move to Patreon. It's a little too personal, a little too controversial and intimate to live publicly on YouTube. So I am interested in what Pixity has to say in response, though. Exactly. Why is it natural to think things are always more than they appear? It's just, to me, it seems like so exhausting. It's when I'm given a reason not to trust someone, I don't, my brain does not know what to do because there's no like gauge. There's no like, I mean, I'm not so dense that I don't know when to find warning signs that maybe somebody had, like, people show you who they are over time. But I just don't know when to go like, oh, that was probably a lie, unless I have reason to believe it was a lie, you know? Or like, up this person did this thing. Why? Because you probably would have done it. That's honestly usually I think why people say shit like that. Like, oh, Alicia definitely went to family to go DM them and rile them up over this. Well, why would you think something like that? Because you're not in my DMs. And it makes perfect sense to believe that this child who, against my wishes, I love you very much, child. Like I don't hold it against you. I don't think you're a bad person at all for it. But this child was actively consuming content about the people, that the creators that they loved, and would get protective of the creators they love. That is how they ended up in one of my videos, is because they loved the creator that I was talking about. Another thing that I got criticized for was that this friendship with this 12-year-old, this like unmonitored friendship with this 12-year-old kid was all about me turning them against a certain creator because I don't like. No, that child's family had been trying for months to get them off of that other creator's content. I didn't care whether or not they continued to like that other. I didn't care. But it's just these things that people, it makes sense to them. And so it's true. That there's a huge difference between this makes sense and so this must be true. You have to find, it's okay to say this makes sense and so I'm suspicious that this thing might happen. That's okay. It's really, really okay, I think, for you to think, I don't like Alicia, and people tend to talk in DMs, just like Alicia talked about this on our Discord. So it makes sense to me that she would have been the one to go to the mother and tell the mother and rile up the mother. It's fine for you to say, I think that might have happened. But the moment that somebody comes to you and says, that did not happen, this is actually what happened. If you refuse to accept this is actually what happened, then you are being willfully ignorant and I want nothing to do with you. You are willing yourself to live in your delusions, and that does not make a good creator. That does not make a good critical audience member. It does not make anything productive for any society that we're living in or any community we're contributing to. All that it's doing is doing what? Contributing to what everybody's talking about right now, echo chambers. And that is one of the reasons why I think that it's important to have people that don't necessarily play devil's advocate, but just remind you of other possibilities, because there are other possibilities at play anytime you have a suspicion about somebody. So, and don't be anybody's doormat, Ellie Rocks. You don't need to be anybody's doormat. Just because you trust does not mean that you need to be anybody's doormat. You have every right to outline your boundaries, and you learn where those boundaries are. People have to cross those boundaries for you to realize that that boundary needs to exist, and that's okay. And I think everybody, and I sure as hell hope that my audience, or what the audience that is shifting and forming around me, because I know that my audience is kind of in a transitional period right now, and that's okay. But I really want to surround myself with people who are going to keep me in check. And so I thank you guys for that. And like I said, at the very beginning of this, you guys are giving me opinions about this and that. You think this is a good look, this is a bad look. Thank you for that. But also I want an audience that supports me in standing up against things that are untrue. Because I think that for a long time, and this is going to go into, I'm going to siphon this into the Patreon live stream bucket, and I'm just going to go the fuck off over there. But I think that since I've been on YouTube, I've held this belief that, like, if somebody has a smaller platform than you, they have less pull than you, then you can't say or do anything about them. And there have been times where I'm like, well, maybe if I allude to them, if I talk about the situation but not the person, then it'll be okay. And then those people have gotten hurt. but then they continue to say shit about me online that's defamatory, that's untrue, that's half truth, that are like accusing me of bullying when I don't even speak to these people. Like there are just certain things that people are saying online, and I think it gets to a point where you're like, okay, my name is being smeared, and something tells me that I have every right to stand up and speak out against this thing that's happening. If I can speak confidently that these things are not true. Because what have I been doing for a little too long has been standing by and saying, okay, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. I shouldn't have done that thing. Okay, I shouldn't do this thing. Oh, yeah, you're probably right that I did do that thing. I did mean that. I did mean something bad by that. And then it gets to the point where you're like, no, dude, if these things are upsetting you because they're untrue, then they're untrue, and you have every right to set the record straight. You don't need to go harassing people. And don't you dare, any of you, go harassing anybody because you've figured out or you think you know who I'm talking about, because damn it, I will be mad at you just as mad as I am at the next person. And that is one thing that I will say I love about my mods is that if it's ever suspected that somebody is from like in my name is harassing, bullying, or hurting other people in defense of me, if my mods and I catch wind of that, they will approach that person, either the person doing the thing to say, hey, cut it out, or the person accusing us of doing it. But to date, it's happened a lot where somebody's like, helloleesh stands are coming for me and they're harassing me. And then we'll ask like, hey, can you tell us who it is so we can talk to them? And then we can't get an answer. So just know that like that is something we keep an eye on. So please don't do it. That's partially to say, please don't be the person that we need to approach because you're behaving in a way that we can't, that like it reflects poorly on me, especially if it's like of a criminal nature, especially. But like I really love that the people in this community keep our reputation in check by looking out for the safety not only of each other, but of the people who don't like us. I think that there's a lot of integrity in a community that will look out for the people even that hate us, even the people we dislike. I think that that's a really, really awesome thing. As a side note, something I love about my mods and the people in this little community, it is really important to have people to hold you accountable. So on that note, I would encourage you to like this video if you haven't. I do a really bad job of reminding people to do that. At the same time, I'm not going to be too hard on myself for forgetting to do that because it's not a natural part of the conversation. And this is a podcast. And I want this to be a good, enjoyable listening experience for those who just want a conversation. But if you haven't taken a moment to like the video, please do so. If you're curious about any of these stories, I would highly encourage you to join my Patreon at the $2 tier if you're curious about any more of these stories. I've stopped kind of taking emails for the regular BAP, but I would highly encourage you to email bap@helloleesh.com if there are certain situations or just topics that you want me to get into that might seem too personal to live on the public side of YouTube, because I want to talk about that stuff. I want to talk about the stuff I'm not supposed to talk about. And that's what this is supposed to be about. Not this, but the BAP, basically a BAP, or basically a podcast. I want that to be about the taboo conversations, which if you didn't know, if you saw at the very end of my last video, I showed a clip called from a podcast called the Bold Bitch Podcast. And their whole thing is to talk about taboo topics. And that's why I was so excited to go on that podcast. And that's what I want BAP to be, is to dive into the taboo topics, to dive into the shit that people tell me I shouldn't talk about and to do it. And if it blows up in my face, that's okay. That's really okay. I'm learning to be okay with the dynamics of this platform. and knowing that I will be okay because I am a good person. I'm definitely a flawed perfect person. Actually, yeah, I am a flawed perfect person, just like all of you are, just like the people who dislike me, just like the people I dislike. Flawed perfect people. And that's totally okay, and I'm totally fine, and I'm totally safe no matter which direction this goes in. So let's just have fun. I'm in a really happy place with this, regardless of how nervous I might be right before getting on camera. But I'm starting to come into a really comfortable place with this because I'm realizing that I'm in such a, I don't want to say privileged or lucky, it's somewhere in between, but then blessed sounds like really like cheesy. But I'm in a blessed enough position to where I have a really good job and otherwise really fantastic, amazing people in my life. So I can take these podcasts wherever the fuck I want to take them because I'm not relying on them. And so I'm hoping that you all see that by me taking that approach to these things, that you see that it's pure. And I no longer want to be consumed by the image, how it looks and how it's going to affect analytics and all that. Fuck that. Let's just have a real conversation and enjoy it because that's what I started this channel for. And that's that. Jane says there's freedom in acknowledging that you can't control how people react to you. Thank you. I agree. Yes. Paige Marie sends a microphone. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me, Paige Marie. If you check out my dress, I didn't mention to the audio listeners that you can kind of see the dress on my Instagram. I posted the thumbnail without the caption on my Instagram. So if you do check out my Instagram and post this dress, make sure that you drop a microphone emoji in the comments. And yeah, join the $2 tier if you just want to join in on the conversations. If you want to be part of the whole experience, it's at $5. But really, I just want a place to have that podcast where I'm allowed to just say things that I can't say if I put it public. People have there's a very, very different attitude towards content that's public and content that is semi-private. So let's have both. We'll have BAP on Tuesday. We'll have BAP on Thursday and just have a good time and see how that shakes out for a little while. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you are too. You like my earrings? I totally forgot where I got them, but thank you. All right, guys, I'm going to go find my mans. We got a really cool mid-century bookcase that just came in from New Hampshire, and I'm just really excited to fill it up. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I love you guys so much. Thank you for letting me have this conversation. I'm sure that some of the things I said, I got water ganked. I'm sure some of the things I said are going to come back to bite me in the ass somehow, but this is going to be my new normal. So I hope you love me through it. And if you don't and you got to go, I understand. But know that I do still love you. I'll take a sip. Cheers to you guys and the changes that we're making on this platform and in each other's lives. And be good to the people around you. Be good to people tonight, at the very least. Start with tonight. Be good to these people. All right. I love you guys. Talk to you Thursday or Tuesday. Bye.